Assalamu alaikum, class is 8. Today we are going to start new chapter, High Society. It is a play and which consists of 4 acts. Okay, so about the play. In this play, a professor of phonetics, Henry Higgins, teaches the mannerisms and speech accent of the privileged society to a modest flower girl, Eliza. The story goes on to reveal how Mr. Higgins took pride in Eliza's transformation without paying any consideration to her true identity and her emotions. Here in the play, Higgins disowns his creation. So, act number 1 begins in Covent Garden at 11:15 p.m. It is raining heavily. People on the road are running for shelter. In the portico of the courthouse stand several people. Among them are a lady and her daughter and a man busy writing in his notebook. The courthouse clock strikes the first quarter. So here, like this, the act one begins. Now the conversation begins between a daughter and a mother, and other characters will also start adding between this conversation. The daughter: I'm getting chilled to bone. What can Freddy be doing? It's 20 minutes since he has gone. So chill to bone means to feel very cold. So it was raining and the daughter was feeling very cold. The mother: he ought to have got us a cab by now. The daughter: if Freddy had a bit of sense, he would have got one at the theater door. Other people got cabs. Why couldn't he? Freddy. Freddy rushes in out of the rain and comes between them, closing a dripping umbrella. He is a young man of 20 in evening dress, very wet around the ankles. Now Freddy say, there isn't any cab available. They all are engaged. The rain was so sudden, nobody was prepared, and everybody had to take a cab. So he answered that no cab is available and all are busy because the rain started suddenly, so everyone took a cab. The mother: oh Freddy, there must be one. You didn't try. Go again and don't come back until you have found a cab. So mother ordered Freddy to go back again and found a cab for them. Freddy: oh very well, I'll go. He opens his umbrella and dashes off but collides with the flower girl who is hurrying in for shelter, knocking her basket out of her hand. So Freddy got collides with the flower girl and all her flowers fall down from her basket. The flower girl say, oh Freddy, what have you done? Freddy: sorry. He rushes off, and then after saying sorry, he rushes off. The flower girl, picking up her scattered flowers and replacing them in the basket. There are no manners at all. She sits down and begins sorting her flowers. She is an unattractive girl of 18 or 20. She is wearing a black dusty straw hat. Her hat needs washing. She is wearing a shoddy black coat that reaches her knees. She has a brown skirt with a coarse apron. Her boots are much the worse for wear. The mother ask, how do you know that my son's name is Freddy? The flower girl: why should I tell you? Will you pay for my flowers? The mother: this is for your flowers. The flower girl: thank you, kind lady. The mother: now tell me how you know that my young gentleman's name. The flower girl: I didn't. The mother: I heard you call him by it. Don't try to deceive me. The flower girl: who is trying to deceive you? I called him Freddy or Charlie, same as you might call a stranger. The daughter: sixpence thrown away. An elderly gentleman of the amiable military type rushes into the shelter. He is in evening dress with a light overcoat. So amiable means lovable. The gentleman enters wearing a light overcoat. The gentleman says, phew. The mother to the gentleman: oh sir, is there any sign of the rain stopping? The gentleman answers, I'm afraid not. It started worse than ever about 2 minutes ago. The flower girl: if it's worse, it's a sign that it's nearly over. So cheer up, Captain, and buy a flower of a poor girl. A bystander to the girl: you be careful. There's a police informer here behind taking down every word you are saying. All turn to the man who's taking notes. The flower girl: what did you write down? You just show me what you have written about me. The note taker opens his book and holds it steadily under her nose. What's that? It isn't a properly writing. I can't read that. The note taker: I can. He reads from his notebook. So cheer up, Captain. The flower girl, much distressed. I called him Captain, but I meant no harm. To the gentleman. Oh, sir, don't let him lay a charge against me for a word like that. You. The gentleman. Charge? I make no charge. Anybody could see that you meant no harm. The flower girl. Then let him say what he likes. He is no gentleman. The gentleman to the note taker. What do you do? The note taker. Simply phonetics, the science of speech. That's my profession, also my hobby. Happy is the man who can make a living by his hobby. So basically, the note taker had a hobby of writing notes, which is basically known as phonetics, and it is a science of speech. The flower girl again answers the note taker, uttering slowly, ought to be ashamed of himself. Let him mind his own business and leave a poor girl. The note taker, woman, stop this boo-hooing instantly or else seek some other shelter. So the note taker stops the girl crying noisily. The flower girl, I have a right to be here if I like same as you. Look up at him in wonder. She cries, ah, 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 ow, 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 ooh. The note taker, whipping out his book. Heavens, what a sound! Ah, 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 oh, oh, oh. The flower girl, tickled by the performance and laughing in spite of herself, gone. The note taker, you see this creature with such awful English? Well, sir, in 3 months I could pass that girl off as a duchess at an ambassador's garden party. I could even get her a place as a shop assistant, which requires better English. That's the sort of thing I do for commercial millionaires, and on the profits of it, I do genuine scientific work in phonetics. So basically, the note taker asks, tells that he could get that girl a place or where she could get her English even better. Gentlemen, I am myself a student of Pakistani dialects and the note taker. Are you? Do you know Colonel Pickling, the author of Spoken Urdu? The gentleman. I am Colonel Pickling. Pickering. Who are you? So the gentleman was actually the Colonel Pickling. Um, and now he asked about the note taker that who is he. The note taker answers Henry Higgins, author of Higgins Universal Alphabet. I was going to Pakistan to meet you. Pickering with enthusiasm. I came from Pakistan to meet you. Where do you live? So basically, the note taker was Henry Higgins and the gentleman was Colonel Pickling. Higgins, 27A Wimpole Street, come and see me tomorrow. So when Pickering asked Higgins where he lived. So Higgins answered that he lived in 27A Wimpole Street. Pickering, I am at the Carlton. Come with me now and have a supper. Higgins, right you are. The flower girl to Pickering as he passes her. Buy a flower, kind gentleman. I'm short for my lodging. What's lodging? Shelter. Pickering, I really haven't any change. I'm sorry. The flower girl. But Higgins, that told you there's no change. The flower girl, flinging the basket at his feet. Take the whole blooming basket for 6 pence. Higgins throws a handful of money into the basket and follows Pickering. Freddie, springing out of a taxicab. Got one at last. Hello, where are the two ladies that were here? So when Freddie came with the cab, he could not see her mother and her sister over there. So he asked the flagger that where they were gone. The flagger answered, they walked to the bus when the rain stopped. Freddie, and left me with the cab on my hands. The flagger, never you mind, young man, I'm going home in a taxi. She gets in and pulls the door with a slam as the cab starts. Freddie, well, I'm dashed. Now over here, the act 2 starts. And the Act 2 begins next day at 11 a.m. Higgins Laboratory at Wimpole Street. It is a room on the first floor looking on the street. Pickering is seated at the table. Higgins is standing near him, closing two file drawers which are hanging out. Mrs. Pierce looking in. She is Higgins' housekeeper. Higgins, what's the matter? Mrs. Pierce, a young woman wants to see you, sir. Higgins, what does she want? Mrs. Pierce, well, she says you'll be glad to see her. when you know what she's come about. She's quite a common girl, sir. I should have sent her away. Higgins. Oh, that's all right, Mrs. Pierce. Has she an interesting accent? Mrs. Pierce. Oh, something dreadful, sir. I don't know how you can take an interest in it. Higgins. Show her up, Mrs. Pierce. She goes downstairs. Then Mrs. Pierce returns. This is the young woman, sir. The flower girl enters. She has a hat with her three ostrich feathers, orange, sky blue, and red. She has a nearly clean apron and a shoddy coat. So basically, the flower girl reaches to Higgins, and now Higgins started speaking. Higgins, why, this is the girl I jotted down last night. Jotted means noted. So she was the same girl he noted down last night. She is no use. I've got all the records. Do the girl be off with you? The flower girl. Don't you be so saucy. Saucy means rude. The flower girl asks, don't be so rude. You haven't heard what I come for yet. To Mrs. Pierce, did you tell him I come in a taxi? Mrs. Pierce, nonsense. What do you think, Mr. Higgins cares what you came in? Why have you come? The flower girl. I have come to have lessons and I'll pay for them too. Make no mistake, Higgins. Well, Pickering gently, what is it you want, my girl? The flower girl. I want to be a lady in a flower shop, but they won't take me unless I can talk more gentle. He said he could teach me. Well, here I am ready to pay him, not asking any favor, and he treats me as if I was dirt. Pickering, very courteous. Won't you sit down? Higgins, what's your name? The flower girl. Lisa Delight. Lisa Doolittle. So the name of the flower girl was Lisa Doolittle. Higgins, how much do you propose to pay me for the lessons? Lisa, oh, I know what's right. A friend of mine gets French lessons for 18 pence an hour from a real French gentleman. Well, you wouldn't have the face to ask me the same for teaching me my own language as you would for French. So I won't give you more than a shilling. Take it or leave it. Higgins, walking up and down the room. You know, Pickering, if you consider a shilling as a percentage of this girl's income, say around half a crown a day, it works out as a fully equivalent to 60 or 70 pounds for a millionaire. It's handsome. By George, it's enormous. It's the biggest offer I've ever had. Lisa, rising terrified. 60 pounds? What are you talking about? I never offered you 60 pounds. Where would I get? So Higgins then said, hold your tongue and sit back down. Lisa, obeying slowly. Oh, one would think you as my father, Higgins. If I decide to teach you, I'll be worse than two fathers to you. Here, take it. Lisa, what's this for? Higgins, to wipe your tears. So Higgins gave her his silk handkerchief to wipe out her eyes. Remember, that's your handkerchief, and that's your sleeve. Don't mistake the one for the other if you wish to become a lady in a shop. So he tries to tell her that the handkerchief is used to wipe the eyes and not the sleeves are used. Pickering Higgins. Pickering Higgins, I am interested. What about the ambassador garden party? I'll say you are the greatest teacher alive if you make that good. And I'll pay for the lessons. Lisa, oh, you are real good. Thank you, Captain. Higgins carried away. Yes, in 6 months in three, if she has a good ear and a quick tongue, I'll take her anywhere and pass her off as anything. We'll start today now. This is moment to Lisa, young woman. You have got to learn to behave like a duchess. Take her away, Mrs. Pierce. Mrs. Pierce, but I have no place to put her. Lisa. Uh-oh. Pickering, let's be reasonable. Go home to your parents, girl, and tell them to take better care of you. Lisa, I have no parents. They told me I was big enough to earn my own living and turned me out. So basically, Lisa had no parents, and she was selling flowers to get shelter and to earn her living. Now, Higgins, very well. Then the girl doesn't belong to anybody, is no use to anybody but me. He goes to Mrs. Pearce and begins coaxing. Coaxing means persuading. You can adopt her, Mrs. Pearce. I'm sure our daughter would be a great amusement to you. So he asked Mrs. Pearce to adopt that girl as her daughter. Pickering, in a good humor. Does it occur to you, Higgins, that the girl has some feelings? Higgins, looking critically at her. Oh no, I don't think so. Not any feelings that we need bother about. Cheerily, have you? Lisa. I got my feelings same as anyone else. Higgins to Pickering reflectively. You see the difficulty? Pickering. What difficulty? Higgins to get her to talk grammar. Lisa. I don't want to talk grammar. I want to talk like a lady. Mrs. Pierce. Mr. Higgins. I want to know on what terms the girl is to be here. Is she to have any wages? And what is to become of her when you have finished your teaching? Higgins impatiently. What's my business as to what will become of her? None. Pickering. Excuse me, Higgins, but I think Mrs. Pierce is quite right. If this girl is to put herself in your hands for 6 months for an experiment, she must understand thoroughly what she is doing. Higgins. How can she? She is incapable of understanding anything. Mrs. Pierce patiently. I think you'd better let me speak to the girl properly in private. Come with me, Eliza. Higgins. That's all right. Thank you, Mrs. Pierce. Pickering retires to the easy chair at the hearth and sits down. Mrs. Pierce holds the door open for Eliza. Mrs. Pierce, come now, Eliza. The new things have come for you to try on. Lisa, uh-oh. She rushes out. Mrs. Pierce, following her. Oh, don't rush out about like that, girl. Higgins, Pickering, we have taken on a stiff job. Pickering, with conviction. Higgins, we have. Now, from here, the act 3 begins. It is Mrs. Higgins at home day. There were many people invited, including Mrs. Ainsford Hill, Mr. Clara, Mr. Freddy, and Colonel Pickling Higgins to come in. Mrs. Higgins said, dismayed, Henry, what are you doing here today? You promised not to come. Higgins, oh mother, I came on purpose. I have a job for you. I have picked up a girl. She is coming to see you. Mrs. Higgins, I don't remember asking her. Higgins, you didn't. I asked her. If you'd known her, you wouldn't have asked her. Mrs. Higgins, why? Higgins, well, she's a common flower girl. I have taught her to speak properly, and she has a strict order as to her behavior. She is to keep to two subjects, the weather and everybody's health, and not to let herself go on things in general. Mrs. Higgins, what does that mean? Higgins, impatiently. Oh, don't you fuss. Pickering is in it with me. I have a sort of bet on that I'll pass her off as a duchess in 6 months. I started on her some months ago, and she's getting on like a house on fire. I shall win my bet. She has a quick ear, and she's been easier to teach than my middle class pupils. She talks English almost as you talk French. So Higgins started teaching that flower girl to behave like a lady and to talk like a lady. And he was helping her, he was teaching her, and he also thought that he will soon get succeeded in doing this. Mrs. Higgins. Oh, I see, Higgins. Oh, you see, I have got her pronunciation all right. But you have to consider not only how a girl pronounces, but what she pronounces. We are all savages, more or less. Mrs. Ainsford Hills enter. Mrs. Ainsford Hill to Mrs. Higgins. How do you do? They shake hands. Mrs. Higgins introducing my son Henry. Mrs. Ainsford Hill, your celebrated son. I have so longed to meet you. Professor Higgins. Higgins, glumly making no movement in her direction. Delighted. Pickering. How do you do, Mrs. Higgins? Mrs. Higgins. So glad you have come. The parlour maid opening the door. Miss Doolittle. Higgins rising hastily. Here she is, mother. Eliza, who is exquisitely dressed, produces an impression of such remarkable distinction and beauty as she enters that they all rise, quiet, flustered, guided by Higgins' signals. She comes to Mrs. Higgins with studied grace. So flustered means they got all disturbed when she entered because she just produced an impression of beauty as she entered, and everyone was so impressed. Lisa, how do you do, Mrs. Higgins? She gasped slightly, making sure of the Higgins but is quite successful. Mr. Higgins told me I might come. Mrs. Higgins, cordially, quite right. I'm very glad indeed to see you. Pickering, how do you do, Mrs. Doolittle? Lisa, Colonel Pickering, is it not? Mrs. Ainsford Hill, I feel sure we have met before, Miss Doolittle. I remember your eyes. My daughter Clara. Then Mrs. Ainsford Hill introduces her daughter Clara to Lisa. Lisa, how do you do? Clara, impulsively, how do you do? Freddie, coming to their side, I've certainly had a pleasure. Mrs. Ainsford Hill, introducing my son Freddie. Lisa, how do you do? Freddie bows and sits down in the Elizabethan chair and listens to what Eliza talks about. Freddie, the new small talk. You do it so awfully well. Lisa, if I was doing it proper, what were you laughing at? To Higgins, have I said anything I oughtn't? Mrs. Higgins, interposing. Not at all, Miss Doolittle. Lisa, well, that's a mercy anyhow. Expensively, what I always say is, Higgins, rising and looking at his watch. Lisa, looking around at him, taking the hint and rising. Well, I must go. They all rise. Freddie goes to the door, so pleased to have met you. Goodbye. Mrs. Higgins, goodbye. Lisa, goodbye. Colonel Pickering, Pickering, goodbye. Miss Doolittle, Lisa, goodbye all. Higgins, by George, is the most absorbing experiment I have ever tackled. So absorbing means gripping. Act 4 begins. The Wimpole Street Laboratory, midnight, Higgins and Pickering are in the room. Higgins, thank God it's all over. Pickering, were you nervous at the garden party? I was. Eliza didn't seem a bit nervous. Higgins, oh, she wasn't nervous. I knew she'd be all right. Eliza comes in and then she say, it was just a bet for you. I won your bet, nothing else. Higgins, you won my bet? You? How presumptuous I want it. Lisa, you are so selfish. You thank God it's all over, and that now you can throw me back again where I came from. Do you? What's to become of me? Higgins, how do I know what's to become of you? What does it matter? Lisa, I know you don't care. You wouldn't care if I was dead. I'm nothing to you. I heard your prayers. Thank God it's all over. Higgins, impatiently, well, don't you thank God it's all over. Now you are free and can do what you like. Lisa, pulling herself together in desperation. What am I fit for? What have you left me for fit for? Higgins, what do you mean? Lisa, I sold flowers. Now you have made me a respectable lady. Now what would I do? I wish you'd left me where you found me. Higgins, how would I know what you do? What would you do? It's none of my business. Lisa comes out. She doesn't know where to go. Now Higgins made Lisa a respectable and a kind and like a good lady, and he taught her manners and accent of speech, because of which Lisa thought that where would she go now, because now she could not sell flowers, and she doesn't know where to go now. So here the chapter ends, and you have to do all the written work from the given presentations. Okay, class? Thank you.